Well, let's get this webinar party started, as they say. Welcome to Conversational Artificial Intelligence on Messaging Apps for Enrollment Success. I'm your co-host, Kirk Delario, joined by my colleague and partner in crime, Brian Ruhlman. Before we get into the agenda today, I just want to do some quick introductions. I mentioned my name is Kirk. I'm one of the co-founders of AdmitHub. I've spent over 20 years in higher ed, started my career in athletics, moved on to college admissions where I worked at 3 different universities on their admissions staff. Also was on the other side of the desk as a director of college counseling in an independent school and spent a number of years as the director of member relations for the Common Application before co-founding AdmitHub as a way to use innovative technology to scale student support. I'm going to pass it over to my good colleague, Brian, for an intro.
Great. Yeah, I'm the millennial of this group, but I don't mean to sound freaky, Kirk, but I was looking at our pictures. I think I almost have more wrinkles than you do.
Mine was touched up, I believe.
Okay. Well, we can share that
yeah.
Photoshop.
I also had more hair in that picture.
Yeah, I think I got you beat on the hair, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm the director of sales and marketing at AdmitHub. I've been here about a year and a half now, but prior to AdmitHub, I was really super focused at HubSpot, working with colleges on using digital marketing, and was working with a lot of colleges on ways to drive engagement. And I saw a lot of emergence in messaging applications. I was actually working in Ireland, and I didn't even have a texting plan. It was all messaging apps. We used WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger to message and call each other. So this is something I'm really passionate about, and I think a lot of opportunity working with some domestic institutions on driving engagement with messaging applications. So that's going to be the name of the game for the webinar today. But Kirk, why don't you take us back into the past to your former days and tell us a little bit about communication.
We're going to get into the past, okay. but first we're going to go through the agenda because that seems to make sense for a webinar of this type. So let's just talk about the plan for today. We're going to talk about the current state of communications. Actually, we'll dive into the past, into my former days in college admissions, to talk about how colleges and companies communicated with consumers and prospective students. That will lead us into this new generation, Generation Z, and how they like to communicate. That's going to lead us into talking about attributes of messaging apps. Generation Z is obviously very active on social media and messaging apps. We're going to focus specifically on Facebook Messenger, and we're going to show you a bit about what you could do on Facebook Messenger and a way to use artificial intelligence to create a virtual assistant on Facebook Messenger, which is very, very cool. But first, we're going to kind of take a blast back into the past. And we've noticed over the past 20 years that there have been some significant shifts in marketing, in the way that companies and colleges market to consumers, prospective students. And there are these trends that emerge about every 5 years. It's actually that gap is getting smaller as we approach this year, 2017. But if we go back to the year 2000, if some of you will remember those days, I certainly remember the excitement that I used to get every time I got a little ping that said, "You've got mail." And this is when email was really in the glory days. Open rates were extremely high, about 85 to 90%. It was an excellent channel to connect with people. Everyone wanted to receive email. They opened every email. It was a great way to share information. But as you all well know, open rates have dwindled significantly over the years. Actually, now they're only about 20%, or even less for Generation Z. So that was obviously in the year 2000, email started coming about, and it was a great way to connect with prospective students and consumers from companies. In 2005, this is really the time where colleges started investing a lot in terms of website marketing and specifically content. So internet access was becoming more ubiquitous. The speed of the internet was fast increasing, and colleges and companies were focused on how they could use their websites not only to capture students' attention and consumers' attention, but to educate them as well. So they put a lot of resources into sharing their stories and educating prospective students and prospective consumers with content. Anything to add to that, Brian?
No, you got it, Kirk.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just passing it over to you, see if you have anything. I'm sure you will in a minute. So kicking it up to 2010, this is really when we saw more sophisticated use of email, the emergence of social media. So regular email just wasn't getting the job done anymore. Obviously, lots of folks were catching on. People started getting spammed, and now companies and colleges started to use student data, buying student data or consumer data as a way to target specific populations of people to capture their attention. And obviously automated marketing started to become pretty big around 2010 or so. And I'm sure a lot of you in the audience have used email marketing as a way to capture students' attention. Social media during this time was also embraced pretty widely by businesses and colleges as a way to network, get in front of these prospective students and their families. Obviously now you see that every college will have social media accounts on multiple networks. Everyone's on Facebook and Snapchat, Instagram, as well as others, WeChat as well for international students. And so social media became a great way in sort of the early 2010s as a way for colleges and universities to really share their stories as well, aside from their websites, because that's where students were. Now we're sort of looking at, since the year 2015, social media has continued to be popular. There's obviously an increase in social media channels, but the focus has gotten to the point where it's really focused on conversation, on messaging, and on video consumption. So we've seen a huge emergence in messaging and video in the past couple of years. And this might actually come as a surprise, but messaging apps like Facebook Messenger actually have a much wider community of users than the big social networks themselves. So messaging apps have more users than WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, actually WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Viber, and WeChat together have more users than Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So as these social networks, Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram, as they're focusing on some sort of video, from events like Facebook Live or Instagram Stories, these are very brief videos. They're meant as a way to capture people's attention. And it's also a fantastic way for colleges to tell their stories, to capture that attention of students, and to present a specific call to action. Anything to add on that one, Brian?
No, I think, we've seen this huge emergence in video, and some of our focus groups that we worked with, some college students, Georgia State specifically, is that they were kind of sharing that they'd rather see the student perspective Snapchat video than a promotional video, just to kind of get the real sense of it. So I think getting an understanding of kind of your story, your brand, and I think doing video content is highly is what's most consumed on the internet today. I'd say that's also challenged with messaging. So I think those two mediums is what we're seeing today, is quick conversational and a lot of video content in many different forms. And the messaging is also in many different forms, from text messaging and those other messaging apps. I mean, Kirk mentioned the 4 big ones, but as you'll learn later in the presentation, there's dozens of different messaging apps.
And we're seeing the next big trend in terms of communicating with students happens to be artificial intelligence. And actually, according to a recent Harvard Business Review article in 2016, the total investment in AI had tripled over the past 3 years to about $39 billion. So lots of companies are actually heading in this direction, and colleges starting to utilize artificial intelligence as a way to scale messaging and scale conversation and student support. And this is going to be the next big trend in the future, is the use of artificial intelligence as a way to manage conversation in a two-way fashion. So as we're thinking about all these trends and now starting to look at artificial intelligence, let's compare that to how colleges are currently communicating with students. And obviously, every college now is utilizing email campaigns. They're calling students on the phone. They're getting students to visit campus. They're utilizing direct mail still. And all of these methods still have a decent return on that investment. More and more colleges are starting to text message students. So this, even a couple of years ago, not many colleges were texting students, but now it's known that this is the best way to engage this generation. So messaging students over text message or even social media is starting to catch on. But very few colleges are utilizing video and messaging and artificial intelligence, which is where the current and sort of future trend of communication is going to be. So the communication methods that colleges are utilizing right now, how does that really match up to what college-bound students want? So these college-bound students are in this newest generation, Generation Z. And you can think of Generation Z in a couple of different ways. I mean, this is a generation that has always been connected to the internet, right? My own kid, I have two teenagers. I think they had an iPad in their hands when they were toddlers watching Sesame Street. They have iPhones today. They don't have their email account set up. They never answer their phone. Yet I know for a fact that I can get a response from them. If I send them a text or a message on Instagram, I can get a response within 10 or 20 seconds. It's amazing. And so according to research, the average attention span of Generation Z is really only about 8 seconds. Now, Brian's generation is about 12 seconds, which is still pretty slow, or pretty quick, I should say, Brian. But
what's yours, Kirk?
Mine is probably less. Mine's about 9 or 10. But because this generation has so many different apps and so many different social media accounts sort of vying for their attention, so much is their attention span has actually dwindled. So it's really come to the point where if you're a college or an institution trying to capture students' attention, you have to be front and center where they are and when they want the help. So those are sort of the key attributes to capturing the attention of Generation Z. They want on-demand, personalized service. They don't want to have to go searching for information around a website. Clicking around for even several minutes tends to frustrate them. And so if they have a question, they'd like to ask a specific question and get a personalized response, something that's relevant to them, relevant to that question. It's timely. And even if they ask it at 3 a.m, they'd like a response almost instantaneously. They want it anytime, anywhere. And this is really what this generation is expert at doing. They're expert at multitasking. They expect this on-demand assistance and instant gratification. So colleges are starting to accommodate them by striving to an always-on 24/7 experience. Brian, anything to add to that?
No, I'd say just messaging applications are matching up really well for this. I mean, especially for international students, it's you can reach anyone, anywhere with messaging apps, and kind of this quick conversational manner is a lot of the communication that's been moving towards that. Even you can see it over emails. A lot of the emails are kind of more informal, even though they might not get a higher engagement. But we've seen really high, and in other companies, colleges, we've seen really high engagement on these messaging apps.
Great. So colleges are not yet utilizing messaging apps to their fullest extent. I think that, as Brian mentioned, messaging is the best way to reach this generation of students, but there's a lot that can be done on messaging apps as a way to share your personal story, share your institution's story, capture their attention, and present a specific call to action. It's a situation where utilizing a messaging app in a conversational fashion in combination with artificial intelligence is a way to sort of maximize your institution's outreach and also maximize their efficiency. So Brian's going to take you through a little bit more in terms of these attributes of these messaging apps and how you could use them to best suit your institution. This is the crux of what we're thinking about here today. We want us all to really think deeply about the ways that we can, and actually think creatively as well about the ways that we can use these messaging apps to connect with students in a more efficient manner.
Yeah, no, and I've been really passionate about the area of messaging apps, but I think there's a ton of opportunity to work with colleges on this area. There's so many different features coming out in different applications, and it's a very cost-effective way to do this as well. If you're texting, you're probably paying a few cents a message. So Facebook Messenger, they're actually really trying to promote students and colleges and companies to be using this as a way to communicate with consumers, or in colleges' cases, prospective students or currently enrolled students. So for the rest of the conversation today, we're going to focus on Facebook Messenger. And actually, the time that we were putting together this deck and presenting it today, there was an announcement from WhatsApp that they're actually releasing WhatsApp for Business. And this is going to be a platform that businesses, colleges, other institutions can use to have two-way dialogues with student, in colleges' case, students. So if you are interested in exploring that, I would highly suggest reaching out to WhatsApp and requesting an account. Let me know. We'll have our email contact information at the bottom of our email, either Kirk and I, and we'll be glad to help you guys get set up. But for the crux of the conversation today, we're going to be focused on Facebook Messenger because we've seen tremendous growth. It's actually the most popular messaging app with about 1.2 billion users on a monthly basis. So we're going to talk about some ways to start these conversations. That's actually the first step, is like you're on Facebook Messenger, your college is on Facebook Messenger. How do you start that conversation? And colleges have some really unique attributes in that they have such a great organic reach. They have so many students enrolling every year. There's alumni. There's always interest with thousands of students each year, hopefully. So we're going to talk about ways that you can start this conversation with your already organic reach that's out there. So some ways to do this, you can, on your Facebook page, you can activate Messenger so that anybody that likes your Facebook page or anybody that even sees it can start messaging you. So Facebook actually has a lot of tutorials on how to make posts to prompt conversations. And there's a lot of calls to action that you can have with your sign up for an event. You can message us. But another way, a unique way that we're actually working with some colleges to start some conversations is using their existing communication. So you can actually put messenger codes. This is actually, it's kind of like a QR code. This is an actual example of our AdmitHub code. So if you take your Facebook Messenger app and scan that code, it'll actually prompt a conversation. And I'll show you in a little bit about how you can even get higher response rates in that first initial outreach with some features that Facebook has. But these, you can put these on mailers. You can put, this is actually a line at a one-stop shop at a college. You can have a kind of a piece of paper or a sign where you can actually have them message with a virtual assistant or someone on Messenger in case you guys are operating and messaging students quickly on that channel. So those are a couple ways that for communication that's already going out that you can start some conversations. Another big thing is advertising. Obviously, colleges are buying names, they're spending money on advertising, whether that's could be kind of a billboard, it could be something on the subway in Boston. I know that there's tons. I can't go commute a day without seeing an ad for a college in Boston, in the Boston area. So there's a lot of different ways you can start with advertising. Colleges, many of them buy lists of names, and you can actually do targeted advertising towards those emails and have very focused outreach with those students. This is an example of a post that I was creating. So I can create the image, I can type the headline, I can have my marketing folks help me out with something that's going to really drive engagement. You can also build custom audiences based on certain geographic locations, any interests. So this is a great way to kind of look at your best fit student and really target those people with ads to start a conversation and just start sharing your story and learning more about that student. So once you start that conversation, it's helpful to be really responsive to messaging. This is an actual tag that Facebook pages will give you if you're very responsive to messages. That's usually responding in about 30 minutes or so. Using a virtual assistant or a chatbot, you can actually get this to be instant, which is obviously very responsive. So pages that are very responsive are going to be more likely to have back and forth messages with students, prompting them, making them more likely to send that initial message out. So you can also, a good way to increase conversion on views to messages is by creating messaging prompts. So these can be all edited in your settings in your Facebook page Messenger tab. And so this is an example of showing a Messenger greeting. So you can say like, hi, first name, thanks for getting in touch with us on Messenger. Feel free to ask us anything anytime. So these are all customizable, and you can actually change this for different types of people. You can also prompt visitors to send messages. So Facebook's really trying to is making your lives easier by really trying to prompt these conversations, because they really see a lot of success in using Messenger. Facebook also really wants you to be able to effectively manage your inbox, because if you're a school with thousands and thousands of people liking your page and you get a lot of traffic, you're going to get a lot of messages. Some of them are going to be spam. So as you can see that you have a folder you can put spam message, you can have follow-ups, you can have unread messages. So you can work with a team to effectively manage your inbox. So those are some simple things you can do to just get started in it. I would suggest at least giving it a try. You don't even have to do promotional ads. You can just start it, turn it on, have it organic. I'm sure a lot of colleges are doing this already. I like to test it out with just some colleges that we speak with, if they're using Messenger to respond. And I say most are. I'd say most aren't very timely in their responses, and aren't trying to drive a conversation or prompt students to an action item. So for the rest of this conversation, there's going to be some features that you can use in AdmitHub that you can't currently use in Facebook alone. We work in tandem with Facebook to really supercharge your efforts in communicating with students and supporting students. So we're going to just talk about a few features what you can do in AdmitHub on Facebook Messenger. And I'd say one thing that's really big for colleges, and I think is the best way to connect with students, is get them on the phone or get them on campus for an event. So almost all colleges that we talk to, actually 100% of them do have events, and it's a great way to promote events. So I just mocked up this fake event, and it's targeted towards my persona of Kirk. Kirk lives in Maine, so this is an admitted student day hike at Mount Katahdin. And
I was really bummed to find out that this was a fake event. Yeah,
well, I mean, Kirk, you can. It looks like you RSVP. We have the one interested. So it could be a soul-searching hike for you.
Absolutely.
College, but I mean, this is what it looks like on the Messenger inbox. A lot of colleges for events are sending emails. They're getting a 20% open rate, so most people aren't even seeing it. Then you have to click on it. Then you go to the website. Then you have to fill out a form. Facebook makes this super easy because they already know who you are with their first name, last name, and you can do a one-click hike, or not a one-click hike, a one-click RSVP, so that you're able to then connect a lot of your events with your Facebook page, but you can also then download that CSV file to then retarget communications, or if you want to send a confirmation email, you can do that. So this is a super easy way to sign up for an event. Another big thing that we do a lot is creating surveys, and there's a lot you can do with surveys. A lot of our partners will do this to first gather a little bit of information to get a better understanding of the student. Like, are they a junior or a senior in high school? What are they most interested about? Are there any specific majors that they want to, that they're interested in exploring? So there's a lot of ways that you can use these surveys to get some actionable data. So this is a specific survey about parking on campus, and you're able to see the breakdown of responses, how many people went out to. But a lot of colleges are using this to schedule appointments for a phone conversation and seeing a much higher connect rate. Instead of cold calling students, they're able to survey students. What do they first want to talk to you? When is a good time to talk to them? And what do you want to talk about? So using a survey feature is super easy to build out. You can get really creative with it. So it's fun seeing what colleges are using for creating surveys. And this is what you can actually send these out on Facebook Messenger. Obviously, when you're interacting with students, a lot of times you're going to have questions. Students will have questions. And a lot of times probably that first message is a question. So there's a few ways you can deal with that. One, you can have people staffing and responding to messages, which is, I would suggest that, having somebody answering the questions. The other way is not answering it, and this is something that some colleges do. They just have so many channels to communicate on. It's not simply possible to message and have one-on-one conversations with thousands of students. The third way, which is actually this example, is using a virtual assistant to answer a lot of those process and status-like questions. And when something needs to be redirected to a human to answer, they have the time to actually answer that question, and that can actually grow with a knowledge base. So this was a conversation that I had with the Georgia State virtual assistant that's actually going live on Facebook later today. So feel free to shoot it a message to see what it's like from the student perspective. But this is a back and forth conversation. On the left side is what it looks like on Facebook Messenger. On the right side is what it looks like in AdmitHub. So you can see the timestamp. I think this is a back and forth conversation, and it looks like 50 seconds or so, 40 or 50 seconds back and forth. And we're seeing that the AI is kicking in to answer these questions. So this is where we get to answer these questions, is by building out a knowledge base. And this is something that Kirk had shared a little bit earlier, how a lot of companies, colleges are moving into AI to help with staff efficiency, to help meet the on-demand expectations of consumers and of prospective college students and currently enrolled college students. And it was a great match with education, is that you're getting a lot of students going through the same processes. There's a lot of different things they can ask about, but it's rather narrow and focused compared to Siri or Alexa when they're asking, what sound does a whale make, or something like that. We'll get some funny answers in questions, how people are asking some funny things, but this is where you're going to be building out a knowledge base, which is going to be changing and growing over time. So with each question that doesn't have an answer immediately, you can then go in and add that to the knowledge base so it's getting smarter. And this is what actually creates a really interesting effect, the AI flywheel effect. So you're going to start with some data. We built the first college chatbot for Georgia State 18 months ago. And we started with some data and some information and knowledge about their institution. We knew we could respond to 200 answers, which had a little bit more questions because there's some synonyms for questions. So there's about 200 understandings. But as more people were using this service, we were adding more to the knowledge base, and the product was getting smarter. And then more people would be asking questions, different questions that I didn't know before, and it would be then adding that to the knowledge base. And we started working with 3,000 students, then we started working with 10,000, now 30,000, and this wheel is just getting tighter and tighter. There's getting more knowledge and more knowledge. And what AI does is has an exponential growth, so that it's continuously getting smarter. It's continuously growing over time. So the colleges that are getting in on this now have a huge advantage over those colleges that even wait 6 months. So it's a great way to start using this artificial intelligence to help staff answering repetitive questions, but also from the student perspective, just answering their personalized questions instantly. So this is creating a flywheel effect, in that it kind of, that loop of feedback to input gets tighter and tighter and faster, and it exponentially grows. So we're seeing that this trend on meeting these on-demand expectations is only becoming more important. I wish I could predict this, but I'm not sure what channel people are going to be communicating on. We've seen really high engagement with text messaging. We've seen really high engagement with Facebook Messenger. WhatsApp for business. My favorite messaging app is WhatsApp. I have my Celtics WhatsApp chat group and other chat groups, but I just love WhatsApp. But we're seeing WhatsApp for business just being released, so I think that's another great. It has about 1.2 billion monthly users, the same as Facebook Messenger. But look at all these other communication channels. There's Voxer, Snapchat, Viber, Kik is another popular. Viber and Kik are a couple other popular message channels. So we can't predict what channel is going to be the main communication channel for Gen Z and generation after that. But we're seeing by building this knowledge base, you can actually communicate on all these channels. So we can work on Facebook Messenger, we work on text message. WhatsApp for Business hasn't yet released a public API for chatbots, but once they do, we're going to be on that channel. So we can't predict the future, but we know that we're seeing a huge emergence in AI and working towards this on-demand expectations. So I hope that is something to think about. And I hope you learned a thing or two from today's call. Kirk actually just wrote a book. I don't think I would have thought I would have said that.
Hey now, Brian.
But it's kind of talking about the on-demand expectations about Gen Z and using intelligent mobile messaging. So if you want to learn more, if you have any follow-up questions, please reach out to us. Kirk, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'll just say, again, I've spent over 20 years in higher ed, and I've never seen a technology like the one we're utilizing now with AI as a way. I've never seen a technology motivate students to change their behavior like this one before. So, we're utilizing this technology as a way to help institutions really scale their student support, but also create a personalized relationship with every single student, and to help every single student get the support they need to make sure that they succeed in college and beyond. So if you want to learn more about it, we're happy to share. We're happy to kind of talk through more about the ways to engage Generation Z, utilizing artificial intelligence as a way to capture their attention. So let us know, give us a shout, and we're very excited that you've made it all the way through this webinar with us, and we wish you the best, and we'll hope to see you soon.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.